Unbroken String. The 3 mistakes that will end your life. Glowing star. The unbroken string. The wind in the mountains of Kyoto was always crisp, carrying the scent of pine and old cedar. For 20 years, Kenji had been an apprentice to Master Hiroki, the most revered kintsugi artisan in all of Japan. Kintsugi is the art of repairing broken pottery with lacquer dusted or mixed with powdered gold. The philosophy is that the piece is more beautiful because it was broken. Kenji, however, felt less like gold-repaired china and more like shattered gravel. That morning, Kenji stood before Master Hiroki, his hands shaking. He had spent 3 months on a delicate porcelain bowl, meticulously gluing the fragments together. But when he went to apply the gold finish, his hand slipped. The entire piece cracked again, splitting into a dozen fresh, sharp edges. "I am sorry, Master," Kenji whispered, shame burning his cheeks. "I have failed again. I am not worthy of the gold." Hiroki, a man whose silence was heavier than most people's lectures, merely smiled. "The key is missing again, isn't it, Elias?" "Kenji," the master said, holding out a handful of tarnished, twisted metal strings. "These are all broken. What is their value?" "None, Master. They cannot make music." "Precisely. They are broken, failed instruments. Now follow me." They walked out to the master's workshop, a place that didn't just smell of lacquer and wood, but of history and patience. Hiroki did not lecture. Instead, he pulled out a small, exquisite wooden box and placed one of Kenji's shattered pieces inside. He began to work, not on the ceramic but on the broken strings. He didn't melt them down. He took a single, thin, high-tensile wire and began to meticulously thread it through the broken metal. Inch by inch he worked, turning the disparate, useless fragments of string into a single, shimmering, flexible cable. After an hour, he held up the creation, a long, strong, intertwined cable of once useless metal. He then attached this braided cable to the wooden box containing Kenji's shattered pottery. "This," Hiroki announced, tapping the wooden box, "is the tension box." He turned to Kenji. "Every time you fail, you see broken pieces. I see material. The bowl broke because the porcelain was rigid. It was brittle. Its failure was inevitable because it had no flexibility." A wave of paralyzing cold fear washed over Elias, mixing with a sudden furious grief. All the years of polite silence, of his grandfather's gentle deflection, of the family's enforced amnesia, it was all a deliberate cover. Hiroki placed the tension box on the table. He took the intertwined cable, the cable made of broken strings, and wrapped it around the box. He didn't use glue. He simply used the tension of the braided metal to hold the box together. "The failure of the bowl," the master explained softly, "is a reminder that rigidity is not strength. True strength comes from incorporating and adapting to your cracks." He looked at Kenji, his eyes warm. "Your anxiety, your past mistakes, they are your broken strings. If you try to hide them, they are useless. But if you take them, acknowledge them, and weave them into your story, they do not make you weaker. They give you the tension you need to hold your own life together." The master picked up a new, intact ceramic bowl. He didn't smash it. He simply set it beside Kenji's shattered one. "The unbroken bowl is beautiful, but it holds only its own shape. Your piece, the broken one, once repaired with gold, will be stronger than the whole. It will tell a story of survival. You must stop seeing yourself as shattered pieces, Kenji. You are the gold lacquer. You are the one who binds the broken parts of your journey together." Kenji finally understood. His failures weren't proof of his weakness. They were the material for his future strength. Fire the 3 mistakes that will end your life. Shocking truth. Chapter 3. The Furnace of Doubt. Kenji did not sleep that night. The realization that the 3 mistakes the master often alluded to were not technical errors, but fatal flaws in the craftsman's mind, consumed him. He picked up a piece of charcoal and in the dim light of the lantern began to sketch them out. 1. The mistake of the mirror, failure to see worth. Kenji remembered his first failure. He had tried to hide the crack with transparent lacquer, attempting to fool the eye into believing the break never happened. It was a failure of honesty. His failure, he now saw, was his own inability to look into the mirror and accept his scars. He always saw the fearful apprentice, not the determined artisan. "The first mistake that kills your future," he muttered. his voice gaining conviction, is trying to hide your own brokenness. You spend all your energy on the illusion of being whole, leaving none for the reality of becoming stronger. The gold only shines when the crack is proudly acknowledged. 2. The mistake of the fixed path, failure to adapt. The master had taught him dozens of techniques, yet Kenji had always clung to the one technique he knew best, even when the ceramic demanded a different approach. He had tried to repair the rough raku bowl with the gentle method reserved for fine porcelain. It was a failure of flexibility. The second mistake that kills your progress, Kenji wrote fiercely, is believing that the path you start on is the only path to the end. Life demands that you change your tools, change your speed, and sometimes, change your destination entirely to reach your goal. 3. The mistake of the future, failure to live now. Every time Kenji had worked, he hadn't focused on the present moment. His mind was always racing ahead. Will the master approve? What if I fail again? It was a failure of presence. The third mistake that kills your joy and your work, Kenji concluded, dropping the charcoal, is allowing the fear of tomorrow's failure to sabotage today's effort. You cannot repair the past and you cannot control the future. The only place you have the power to apply the gold is right now. He stood up. The 3 mistakes were clear: hiding the scars, refusing to change, and fearing the future. Chapter 4. The Crucible of the Third Attempt, Overcoming Mistake Number 1 and Number 3. Master Hiroki entered the workshop that morning, carrying a small, heavy box. This is not a repair, Kenji, the master said. This is a test of vulnerability. Inside the box was a chawan tea bowl that had been intentionally crushed into over 50 tiny fragments decades ago, a symbol of a mistake too painful to face. This was the ultimate act of hiding the scar and maintaining the illusion of being whole by burying the painful truth. Kenji felt the familiar, cold panic return, the dread of mistake number 3, the fear of tomorrow's failure. He forced his gaze to stay on the present task, mixing the lacquer. He made the difficult motivational choice. He took the thickest, darkest lacquer and began to work, deliberately making the seams bold, filling the gaps with the thick black resin. He worked slowly, accepting the sheer number of breaks as the story itself. By sunset, the bowl was whole again, but it was ugly. It looked like a map of shattered glass, held together by dark scars. Master Hiroki finally spoke, his voice thick with emotion. You, Kenji, are the first person to look at this devastation and declare that the damage is not the end of the story. You have not hidden the scar. You have prepared it for transformation. Kenji had acted in the present and made the failure his foundation. Mistakes number 1 and number 3 were defeated in this single arduous action. Chapter 5. The Test of the River, Overcoming Mistake Number 2. The final test came 2 days later. Master Hiroki handed Kenji the bowl and the gold. You will take this to the Kawa River that flows near the eastern gate. You will apply the gold there, and you will not return until the piece is finished. The riverbank was windy, dusty, and humid, the worst possible environment for the delicate work of applying gold powder. This was the direct confrontation of mistake number 2, the fixed path. At the riverbank, the wind was merciless. Kenji saw immediately that the traditional method, sprinkling the fine gold powder onto the wet lacquer, was impossible. The wind would instantly whisk the material away. He realized he had to adapt. He decided on a technique usually reserved for very coarse pottery: narration, mixing the gold directly into the final layer of lacquer to create a paste. He lowered his head, using his own body as a shield against the breeze. He applied the thick, golden paste not with a brush, but with a tiny flattened piece of bamboo, a tool he had shaped himself for this task. He was no longer a rigid professional. He was a flexible warrior. When he finished, the bowl was spectacular. The gold was not a smooth, perfect line. It was a rough, glowing river flowing over the dark scars. The river environment had forced him to use an uneven, tactile application. Kenji understood the shocking truth. The 3 mistakes are not failures of skill. They are failures of courage. He carried the tea bowl back to the master. You have applied the gold, Kenji, the master said. But more importantly, you have applied the truth. The chawan, once a symbol of crushing failure and shame, now stood as a testament to unbreakable, adaptable courage. a powerful beacon of motivation.